Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Questions on numbers of bucks and does they shot, age structure of the harvest, and then a whole host of other questions about what's going on within their state, hunting-wise, management-wise, big issue-wise. We compile this all together, and it goes into an annual whitetail report. And I have 3 copies up here of our 2018 report. We've been doing these, as I said, this is the 11th year. The new report comes out in January of every year, and our 2019 report is just out now. And the 2019 report is essentially what I'm covering today, or the highlights of that. So these are all online. These are all free downloads at QDMA.com. So if you are a deer nut, you can go there and get all this information in a state-by-state look at how your state compares to others on numbers of deer that are harvested annually, age structure of that, sex ratios of that, all kinds of information. So it allows you to see kind of what's going on in your neighborhood, in your region of the country, and then you can kind of compare that to other regions. So when I'm done here today, there's 3 copies of last year's report here. You're welcome to come up and grab those. And everything that I present today is actually on QDMA's website now, online. The printed copies for this year are not back yet, but you do have access to all this data. So to set the stage here with what we're talking about, I think it's important to understand that deer management is not a one-size-fits-all recipe. You know, and as hunters, we like to think that on how we hunt and the opportunities that we have are similar to other hunters across the whitetails range. But that's not true at all. It's very different where we are within this range. And just think about some of the different things that deer deal with on a daily basis based on where they are. Things like average daily temperature. You can take a look at the average daily temperature in February here. There's a 60-degree swing from South Florida to northern Minnesota. So big differences on those deer herds because of that. Tremendous differences on the habitat that they live in with regard to the amount of food that is produced, the amount of cover is produced. So when you're thinking about hunting in your state or what's going on in other states, I'm going to show a few variables here to just think about how these things impact deer, because these all go into the number of deer that die each year to hunters, the age structure of those deer, and the opportunities that those hunters have. So there's big differences across the whitetails range in average annual precipitation, which has huge influence on the amount of forage that's produced and quality of that forage. Big differences on forest cover. You know, you have deer in northern New England that will live their entire life in a mature forest. You have deer in South Texas that will never see a mature tree their whole life. You have deer in the plains that will never see a tree. So big differences in just how adaptable these animals are. And then certainly that's a big difference on what hunting opportunities we have. Somebody hunting in northern New Hampshire is going to hunt entirely differently than somebody in western Kansas, for example. We have big differences in deer densities across the range. Some places have lots and lots of deer, and in some places have very low densities. And there's big differences in hunter density. And this is one that hunters almost never think about. But this arguably has the largest impact on what we shoot year in and year out in any one of these states. So for example, what I'm saying here is the West, and we have this data in an older whitetail report, hunter densities in a state-by-state manner. I'm going to combine them here this morning. For example, in the West, all the states combined only average about 100 per square mile. So big, wide open places, beautiful landscapes, just not many people. So 100 per square mile out there. As you move east, you get into the southeast and the Midwest, they both average about 600 per square mile. So suddenly you can start seeing some of the differences in management programs based just on where you are relative to hunter density. If you get to the northeast, that jumps to 1,100 per square mile. My home state of Pennsylvania leads the country. We have over 20 hunters per square mile. So think about this. You can have the exact same deer management program in, say, Arizona as you do Pennsylvania. You can have everything exactly the same, but the results would be far, far different simply because of the number of hunters on the landscape. So as hunters, we need to think about this as we're thinking about, what do they do in Michigan? Or how do they do this in Nebraska? Or it works really well in Kentucky, why wouldn't it work at home? Make sure we take a look at the number of hunters on the ground that play into that, because that explains a lot of the differences. We also have differences in deer or subspecies of deer, whether we're in Florida or Texas or Saskatchewan or anywhere in between. So a big difference is what we can hunt. Does anybody know or has seen this deer on TV or know anything about this? So actually, this is Rochelle Partridge. Her husband Dean Partridge runs Canadian Whitetail. It's the best deer content TV show out of Canada. If you watch TV at all, this is known as the creek buck. It is an incredible story. Obviously, plus 200-inch deer, but like 213 or 215. The story behind it is even better. So if you watch TV at all or search any of that, search the creek buck on the Canadian Whitetail, and it's a fascinating story. All right. So now let's just talk about exactly what we have in our this year's Whitetail report. So as I said, this is online. You can go to QDMA.com and download all of this. So everything that we have following now comes straight from this report. So if you want to take notes, that's fine. You don't have to, because you can get them all right from this. But one of the things that we monitor across the whitetails range and have been for a long time is a percentage of 1.5-year-old bucks in the buck harvest. So we get every single state's harvest data, and you can take a look at this, because this is a really good measure of quality deer management programs and and what states are doing to have good age structures of bucks versus very skewed age structures. And what we found was in the 2017-18 season, and I'll say all of the data that comes from this, the harvest data is from the 2017-18 season, because that's the most recent season that is complete and states have the data available. So for example, the next season, the 18/19 season, is still going on in many states. So next year's report will include that, because those seasons won't conclude until end of January into February, and it takes states many months to compile the data after. So the 2017-18 season, take all the antler bucks shot across the whitetails range, 35% of them were 1.5 years old. And this is near the lowest national average ever reported. And in fact, we've been monitoring this since 1989, and back then, 62% of all the bucks shot were 1.5 years old. And you can see how that line has changed over the years as the influence of QDMA has grown, as the influence of the whole push of QDM and hunters becoming more knowledgeable, down to now it has bottomed out over the last 5 years at about 1/3. And that's a pretty good place to be. It means of all the bucks that we shoot today, about 1/3 of them are 1.5 years old. Well, we can take a look at this on the other end of the spectrum as well, and we look at all the bucks harvested that are at least 3.5 years old. So we combine the 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, etc. all together. And in that same season, 34% of them were at least 3.5. And this is near the highest national average ever reported. So there's some really good age structures out there right now, which relates to really good hunting opportunities for us. If we take a look at this, what this means now is today, hunters kill more bucks that are 3 and older than they do bucks that are 2.5. And this is a very powerful statement, because there's a lot of states out there that have programs designed to protect yearling bucks. Antler restriction programs and educational pushes from agencies to do that. But there are no programs designed to protect 2-year-old bucks. It's just to move the majority of 1.5 to 2.5. Now you have hunters saying, we want the opportunity to hunt some older bucks. So they're talking the talk, but this data shows they're also walking the walk, because there's no states protecting 2-year-old bucks, but yet hunters are willingly shifting a large number of these 2-year-olds into these older age classes to be able to harvest, which is pretty cool. So it's a very different experience that hunters have today on average than we did 10 or 20 years ago. And in fact, if we put both of these together, we take a look just since 2001, so the last 17 seasons, these are the percentage of bucks that were 1.5 years old. And I just showed you a little bit of this from that yearling data. So over time, we've coming down, we're fewer yearlings, so we're down at about 1/3. Now what I want to show you is I'm going to overlay the percentage of bucks that are 3 and older on this. So back in 2001, it was only about 20%. So for every 1 buck we killed that was at least 3, we killed 2.5 that were just 1. Now watch how this has changed over time. Percentage of 3 and older is growing, and it's about equal today. So think about it. So for those of you that have been hunting at least since 01 or longer, there's many folks in here who have been hunting a lot longer now. Just think how different the experiences we have today, or the opportunities we have today, compared back to this, for this shift in age structure. And almost all of this was hunter-driven, and almost all of it was based on educational programs, and hunters just learning the benefits of not shooting every yearling buck, and then having some older deer out there. So pretty cool. It certainly makes for some great trail camera opportunities and some phenomenal hunting opportunities. All right, let's take a look at harvest numbers. We break all of our data in our report down state by state and province by province. But for this, I'm going to combine the groups because I simply can't show all the state stuff. So the 3 main groupings I'm going to talk about are the Northeast, the Midwest, and the Southeast. And the reason for that is if you draw a line right down the Rocky Mountains, everything east of that makes up those three regions consists of about 97% of all the whitetails that live in the U.S. and about 97% of all the hunters that live in the U.S. So I mean, that is the snapshot of exactly what's going on in the vast majority of the whitetails world. We have data from the West on this, but a lot of Western states, their harvests combine whitetails and mule deer together. They're not able to separate them. So the report includes that information, but what I'm going to share with you next is from these three main regions of the whitetails range. Well, from an antler buck end, those three regions shot over 2.8 million antler deer, and this was up 2% from the year before. And there's an important caveat here is that it says with no Alabama data, the state of Alabama still does not have all of their deer harvest data from 2 hunting seasons ago. And this is not a knock on Alabama's DNR. They use Responsive Management, which is one of the top natural resource survey companies in the country, to survey hunters, to provide this, and a lot of agencies do that. That was all done. The data came back. There was an error in the data, or a few errors in the data. So the data has gone back to Responsive Management, and Alabama just hasn't received the results yet. So what this means is all the other year's data includes Alabama data. So even without them this past year, the buck harvest still increased, which is pretty cool. Because if we take a look at what's going on the last 10 hunting seasons with bucks, you can see the antler buck harvest was kind of up, kind of down, going a little bit. But here's what's happened the last 3 years. This is a big deal. We are back to some pretty historic highs with regard to numbers of bucks that we're killing today. And all of this data includes Alabama. This one does not include Alabama. And Alabama typically shoots about 100,000 bucks a year. So this likely is even higher. So this is a pretty big deal today with what's going on in the whitetails world. Well, who do you think kills more bucks than anybody else? Which state? Rhode Island? Not Rhode Island, right, Bruce? Texas. Year in and year out, Texas kills more bucks than anybody else. But they should, right? It's the biggest state in the lower 48. A lot of deer hunters, a lot of deer. The thing that's amazing about this is it more than doubled the second state. I mean, that's a sheer scale look at how many bucks they really kill annually in Texas. So we always take a look at who shoots the most because hunters want to know that. But that's not an apples to apples comparison, right? So we also take a look at this as who killed the most bucks per square mile. So now we can measure a little bit better apples to apples with all these states. Texas does not lead this. In fact, actually, Michigan typically leads this year in and year out. We kill more bucks per square mile than any other state. And this is an extremely high harvest rate. So you think, Ford, is that all that high? That's really high. I mean, that's a lot of deer. There's a lot of deer hunters in Michigan, big deer hunting culture. They kill a lot of bucks. But we also take a look at this in one more different way is because, okay, we can look at it per square mile, which is really cool. But how about if we look at it on who kills the most for every 100 deer hunters? You know, start comparing it on actual numbers of deer hunters in these different states. And what we found here is actually Texas comes back out on top. And think about this, for every 100 deer hunters in Texas, they killed 69 bucks. That is an astounding harvest rate. And even these other states out here, I mean, these are states that are really, really whacking bucks. So a lot of good hunting going on here. All right, well, let's take a look at the other end of this, the antlerless harvest. Those same three regions shot over 2.8 million antlerless deer, and this was within a percentage point from the year before. Obviously, again, with no Alabama data. But the scene here is very different. This is the same 10-year period that I showed you for bucks. This is what's going on from 2008 to 2014. Pretty similar with what we saw buck harvest, right? But remember the last 3 years of buck harvest has been skyrocketing. Here's what's happening in the antlerless side. It has plummeted. And in fact, from 2008 to now, it has dropped 18%. And I'll show you this because what that is means that is a difference of 120 million venison meals. Think about that. 120 million meals lost during this time period because of this reduced antlerless harvest. Now, I will say this, there's a lot of reasons for this. Some states have been aggressively harvesting antlerless deer back in here and have now balanced deer herds with a habitat. So there's not the need to shoot as many antlerless deer. So that is one of the reasons in some states. Some states, particularly in the southeast, now that coyotes have moved in and predation rates have skyrocketed, fawn recruitment rates have plummeted. So they just simply don't have the deer in the landscape anymore, and they have dramatically reduced antlerless harvest opportunities because they simply don't have the base of deer to support that harvest anymore. There's habitat loss, there's a lot of things that go into this. So, but suffice to say, across the whitetails range, this is a big deal and in a very, very different look from what we've seen during the past decade. So, who do you think shoots the most antlerless deer? You think Texas leads this one?
Nope.
Texas never leads us, except they did this year. So 2017 was a tremendous year in Texas. They actually led the country in antlerless harvest as well. However, we do the same thing here. We look at them per square mile. They weren't even close on the per square mile basis. Maryland is the perennial leader here. And year in and year out, Maryland shoots more deer per square mile total, bucks and does, than any state in the country. Which is amazing if you think about that, if you know Maryland at all. The whole western half of the state is very mountainous, very similar to West Virginia or parts of Pennsylvania. So certainly the eastern half, we think of the Midwest with all of their ag and tremendous growing conditions. But the western half is very different. So the fact that they shoot this many deer, tremendous number of deer going into freezers in Maryland each year. We can take a look at that, the antlerless harvest, with regard to numbers shot per 100 deer hunters as well. And Maryland comes out here and think about this stuff. For every 100 deer hunters in Maryland, they shoot 93 antlerless deer. That's a pretty high harvest. That's a fun place to be to go deer hunting. All right, so if we put those both together, we know that combined, bucks and does, shot over 5.7 million whitetails, which provide a tremendous recreational opportunity for hunters. Billions to our economy that essentially funded all of these wildlife management programs. They provided over 1.1 billion wholesome meals. This is something that as hunters we don't talk about nearly enough. I am guessing all of you deer hunt, I'm guessing all of you eat venison, and I'm guessing all of you share venison with friends and family. But how many of you talk about that or tell people, oh yeah, we did this, we shared this? As hunters, we need to do that more. Because as hunters, we're a distinct minority. Only about 4% of the U.S. population buys a hunting license. We don't get to hunt because 4% of us buy a license. We get to hunt because about 3/4 of the American public supports hunting, supports legal, ethical, regulated hunting. So the better job we can do as hunters to look good and project a positive public image, the more likely it is that non-hunting public will continue to accept what we do and support us. And this is a great way to be accepted, to tell folks, you know what, I shared venison. I shared meals with needy families and with my church and with groups and with the school or whatever. So as hunters, I challenge you, make sure that you share some venison this year with friends or family, and and encourage others to do the same. QDMA, we have two big 5-year goals that relate around this. One is that in the next 5 years, QDMA members are going to share 20 million venison meals. These are prepared meals. I'm inviting Bruce and his family over, and we're cooking venison and I'm sharing. We're encouraging our members. There's 20 million meals. We are also going to share donate 40 million venison meals, where I'm giving him some hamburger, or I'm giving him some steak, or I'm donating the deer, or I'm dropping a deer off, or I'm paying for deer processing. So think about that. 20 million meals we're going to share, just QDMA members, and 40 million meals we're going to donate. So please help us with that. Do whatever you can in your community with it, encourage others to do it, and this is great for the future of hunting. All right, let's look at, we picked out 10 of the current national issues that are really big today in the whitetails world, and we'll share this information with you to kind of give you a national perspective exactly what's going on. One of them is that we take a look at, all right, we know how many deer get shot. Well, how do they get shot? What percentage of all the deer harvest do you think get taken with firearms? Is it a quarter? Is it a half? Is it 3/4? It's about 2/3. Across, the states certainly vary this, but nationally, about 2 out of every 3 deer shot are shot with a rifle or a shotgun. The thing here, the archery part, muzzleloader, stay kind of, the bow part has really jumped. 15 years ago, only 15% of the deer were taken with archery equipment. And today it's up to 23%. Obviously, we can use crossbows in a lot of states we didn't used to. We have a lot more expanded archery seasons, a lot more expanded opportunity. So we're trying to get people into the system, which is a good thing. And that number's jumped quite appreciably in the last decade and a half. Well, we also take a look at when these deer are shot. So what percentage of all the deer shot do you think are shot pre-firearms? When there's still a whole bunch of green grass out here and everything is really growing. We take a look at this, and nationally, over a quarter of the deer were. 26% of all the deer that got shot during the 2017 season were in the freezer before the first day of that state's primary firearm season opened up. So a lot of expanded opportunity and more early seasons are going on. The Northeast as a region shoots the most before firearm season starts. A third of the deer are already in. And New Jersey led the nation. Over half of all the deer killed in New Jersey are dead before the opening day of their shotgun season starts. This is very different than in the past. The states are making a concerted effort to provide more opportunities, and especially early opportunities. When the weather's nicer, maybe you can get kids out more or whatever. So they're trying to take advantage of longer seasons to do this. Well, how about opening day? I'm from Pennsylvania, where opening day is arguably the biggest day of the year. These guys are from Michigan, same with them. So what about opening day? You know, is your opening day really heavy and hot and intense, or not so much? What we found is across the country, about 1 out of 10 deer get shot on opening day of the state's primary season. And this is really a north-south thing. If you're in the south where it's very long seasons, opening day effect tends to be way less. If you're in the north where you have very short, intense seasons, opening day is bigger than Christmas. The Midwest actually shoots the most on opening day at about 16%. In fact, Minnesota led the country with this. Over a quarter of all their deer get killed on one day of the year. So, you know, if you want to be someplace that's fun and intense and exciting, you know, it's electricity in the air. That is the place to be, opening day of Minnesota's primary firearms season. All right, one can't come to a bow show and not talk about bow hunter numbers. Does anybody have any idea how many bow hunters there are in the United States? There's about 3 million. Across the Whitetail's range, about 3 million bow hunters, and Midwest has the majority of them with regard to taking a look at those regions. Greater than 1.3 million. However, the Northeast has the most per square mile. Averages almost 4 bow hunters per square mile. Now what's amazing about this is, remember early on when I said hunter density has such a big influence or impact on the deer harvest? We can take a look at this. How many of you would like to go to Iowa deer hunt? Or how many of you recognize Iowa as a good deer hunting state? Oh yeah, you know, like Iowa and whitetails go hand in hand, right? Iowa averages less than 5 hunters per square mile. So in addition to good growing conditions and ag and all of that, one of the things that allows them to do what they do is they just don't have that many hunters. It's not from a lack of desire, right? They just really restrict non-residents to be able to come in and particularly bow hunt. So Iowa averages less than 5 hunters per square mile total. Pennsylvania, the Northeast, averages about that many bow hunters per square mile. Then you add all the rifle and shotgun hunters on top, so big, big differences there. But actually, Pennsylvania has more bow hunters and more bow hunters per square mile than any other state in the country. So lots of opportunity in Pennsylvania and lots of folks on the landscape. Let's talk about successful hunters. You know, many states today have expanded bag limits, and many hunters think, geez, you know, we can kill X number of does, or we're going to kill all the deer. They're all going to be gone. Georgia's a perfect example. You buy your deer license in Georgia and you get, what, $2 and 10 antlerless deer that you can shoot. So think, Jesus, if everybody kills 10 antlerless deer, all the deer would be gone. Well, the reality is, if everybody did kill 10 antlerless deer, they probably would. But that doesn't happen. What we found is that if you take a look at this across the whitetail's range, 41% of all hunters shot a deer in 2017. So nearly half of everybody, which is pretty good. That's a pretty high success rate. This ranged from 12% in Arizona to 69% in South Carolina. So South Carolina, nearly 3/4 of all their hunters got to shoot at least one deer. That's a pretty high harvest rate. A lot of deer, a lot of opportunities go into that. Arizona, very restricted opportunities is what really plays into that. And this actually is down a little bit. We asked the same question back in 2011, and in that year, 48% of all the hunters in the U.S. shot a deer. So our success slipped a little bit. But we also asked, what percentage of your hunters shoot more than one deer? So this goes back to this whole Georgia thing, you know, if everybody could kill 10 deer. But what we found out is that only 15% of all the hunters in the country killed more than one deer in 2017. Probably everybody in here shot more than one deer that year, so we were in the minority with this. So in my example about Georgia, you can buy your license, you get 10 antlerless opportunities at $2. The thing is, in Georgia, less than half the hunters even killed one deer throughout the year. So the reality is very different from perception with regard to many hunters on what the bag limit in their state is or how many deer folks can kill. All right, let's take a look at how many days people actually spend to field deer hunt. I'm sure you probably have some idea. Did I spend 5 or 10 or 20 or 50 or what was it last year? In 2017, hunters averaged 12 days hunting deer. Southeast hunters average the most. And I think this really plays into they have, in many cases, the longest season. So they have the most opportunity to spend time in the field. This actually ranged from hunting deer 3 days a year in Indiana to 25 in Mississippi. Now, I don't know how hardcore of a deer hunters you are, but I'm guessing if you're here at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning, you're probably a pretty hardcore deer hunter. You know, I can't even imagine hunting deer 3 days a year and being done. If I don't get 3 days in, you know, opening week, I'm getting a little nervous and, you know, I'm missing out. But, you know, this is a reality. So across the state of Indiana, all the deer literally average 3 days. Now they have shorter seasons than some, different opportunities than some, but big, big differences. So this is a fun table to look at in the report just to see kind of where or how you compare to what your state has. Well, deer vehicle accidents are a big deal, a really big deal. And they certainly impact all of us with regard to what we pay for truck insurance rates. In the U.S., according to State Farm Insurance, which compiles this area, from July 2017 to June 18, so this one-year block, we hit over 1.3 million deer on the road. That's a lot of whitetails hit. And actually, the Midwest hit the most as a region. We hit nearly 500,000 whitetails. The Northeast hits the most per road mile. So we hit one for every third of a mile, or for every, we hit 0.35 deer for every 1 mile of roads that are actually there. Now think about this, think about the personal safety factor to us, waste of the resource, because most of these deer don't go to somebody's freezer, and then we end up paying more from insurance end to cover all of this. So this is a big deal. My home state again kind of was unfortunately led this, hit over 140,000 deer, and then hit one for every half a mile of road. So not good. That's one of the reasons that Pennsylvania has some of the highest insurance rates in the country with regard to vehicle insurance. Let's talk about urine for a minute. This is becoming a bigger and bigger deal where states are outlawing the ability of hunters to use natural urine from deer or elk because of CWD concerns and some of the threats. And what we found now is the states that you see in yellow, and it looks great on my computer, it doesn't look as good here. Most of the country in green still allows it, but there are 8 states now and 1 province that do not allow urine anywhere in the state, natural urine, to be used by hunters. And there's a handful of other states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota that don't allow it in their disease zones. So this is becoming a big topic. There was talks on this here yesterday. A lot of the discussions going on in the professional community on the exact risk of urine and how this is. We show this here just to show you that there's a lot of discussion at the State Wildlife Agency and a lot of hunters being impacted today. And this discussion is only going to get bigger moving forward. Well, how about tracking dogs? Can you use a dog in your state to track wounded game? It wasn't all that long ago that there was many states that just simply didn't allow it. Well, fortunately today, about 75% of the states, everybody in green, allows you to track wounded big game today with a dog. The states that you see in stars here means that that dog has to be on a leash while you're tracking, but you at least have that opportunity. And this is good. As hunters, we should have every tool available to us to do everything morally and ethically responsible to retrieve a deer or a bear or a big game that we have hit. So dogs can certainly help from this perspective, and it's nice to see a lot more states here in green than there were just a handful of years ago. All right, last issue we're going to talk about then is disease, because this impacts as many hunters as anything else that we're talking about here. And there were some pretty big headlines that happened last year. What we know, a hemorrhagic disease was confirmed in free-range deer in 14 different states. If you take a look here, these are the states. These are all across the Whitetails range, northeast, south, and west. And I vividly remember being a wildlife student at Penn State University back in the late 80s and early 90s. And when we got to the hemorrhagic disease discussion, our professor literally said, this is a disease of deer in the southeastern U.S. Next page. And that was all we learned about it, because it essentially was not in the north. And that's very different today. We deal with it every year in the north. And in fact, last year for the first time, it was in Ontario. So it is from Florida to Ontario, west to Montana. And everybody gets impacted at some point by this. So 2018 was a relatively quiet year for it. Most of these states, it was pretty late. Pennsylvania was actually one of the worst hit states in the southeastern part of the state. So certainly not what we saw in 2007 or 2012, where we had 2 100-year events almost back-to-back from hemorrhagic disease. Bovine tuberculosis continues to be a threat, particularly for the folks in Michigan. Luckily, Indiana and Minnesota that have dealt with this over the last few years, no cases at all, but and still contend with this in northeastern lower peninsula of Michigan. And additional positives again this year, which directly impacts a bunch of hunters in that area. And a couple of tick-related things that are pretty important are we now have this Asian longhorn tick in the United States. Showed up about a year ago, and by the end of 2018 was confirmed in 8 different states. So there's a new tick species that as hunters we're dealing with, and alpha-gal. This is the red meat allergy. It's carried by ticks. That means if you get this, you simply cannot eat any red meat at all. And continues to increase. And this is, I think, one of the scariest things out there for anybody who deer hunts or spends time in the field and is in and around ticks. And actually, right close to home, our CEO, Brian Murphy, his best hunt buddy in Georgia that they hunt together is afflicted by this. And they can no longer eat any of the venison that he shoots or be around it. It's a very serious allergy. All right, the other half of that then is CWD, chronic wasting disease, which everybody here certainly understands the difference between CWD and hemorrhagic disease. This is now 26 states, with Tennessee being the newest state, so it's over half of the country now has this. Some of the research where we show the important things about this, and there's a lot of misinformation out there with this, but the two big things I think hunters need to know are, one, research shows that CWD positive deer die at 3 times the rate of deer that don't have it. Because you often will hear hunters say, you know what, we don't see sick deer, we're not finding sick deer, is this really that big of a deal? It is, because those deer are dying. What happens in most cases is they die at the phase or at the hands of predators or vehicle accidents or something else before the disease fully runs its course and we see them all sickly and dead. But you think about this, if I tell you, deer in the area, some deer are dying at 3 times the rate of other deer, does that sound like a positive thing for your future hunting opportunities? Not at all. This is exactly what's happening in the world of CWD. So it's killing them. It's almost like a silent killer because we don't see it in many cases. But this is a very unnatural death rate that these deer are trying to deal with today. We also know that CWD positive deer are less active than CWD negative deer. So from a hunting end, when you go hunting, are you hoping that all the deer in your area are not active? How many of you hope the deer are not active when I go out hunting today? We don't want that at all, right? We want them on their feet, moving like crazy. And deer that have CWD, even when they don't show any signs, move at a much lower rate. So that's not good at all. So this is not good for the future of deer herds. This is not good for any day that we go deer hunting. So those are two of the big things that CWD really negatively impacts our hunters. The two best things that we can do as hunters to slow the spread of CWD and allow the science to catch up and find a cure for this is, one, stop moving live deer and stop moving the high-risk parts of harvested deer. Those are the two ways by far that we move this more than anything else. If we could do these two things, we could dramatically slow the spread of this disease until we can figure out some way to beat it. So, if you want more information, QDMA has a hashtag #FightCWD campaign where we provide all kinds of information for hunters. Hey, here's what the facts show. Here's what's going on. This is not a fear-mongering thing by any means. It's just good information to share with hunters and things that you can do to help in your community slow the spread and help in this battle. All right, we're going to end then with a couple fun slides looking at deer harvest statistics. Because we take a look at all the deer that are shot and see, all right, who shoots more of them with a bow than anybody else? So any state, total deer harvest, like which state shoots the highest percentage of their total deer harvest with archery equipment? Anybody know? New Jersey. New Jersey shoots almost 60% of their deer with a bow. But think about this, New Jersey is the most urbanized state in the country. A lot of deer, a lot of deer hunting opportunities, a lot of firearm ordnance zones. So there's a lot of places you just simply can't use a rifle or a shotgun or even a muzzleloader. So lots and lots of deer. The only way you can kill them is with a bow. And year in and year out, New Jersey kills more deer with a bow than anybody else. How about top muzzleloader states? Who shoots a higher percentage of deer with a muzzleloader than anybody else? Kentucky, right? Because they developed the Kentucky long rifle. Is that true? That's not true. It's Rhode Island. 42%. And actually, I had a good conversation with Rhode Island's deer biologist about this and said, what exactly is it? What drives this? And he said, what happens is hunters in his state have a better opportunity to shoot antlerless deer with muzzleloader than a firearm because muzzleloader season comes in prior to the primary firearm season. And it is much more lenient with regard to what they can do. So this is simply the best opportunity, other than with a bow, to shoot antlerless deer in Rhode Island, and hunters take big advantage of it. So how about with a rifle? Who kills the highest percentage of deer with a rifle? This would be the anti-ATA show, folks, right? If they're killing all the rifle, they're not.
It's gotta be Pennsylvania, right?
It's not Pennsylvania. It's actually Idaho. We can go out west of this, some big spaces, wide open spaces where they're shooting long ways. So Idaho, Wyoming. But the neat thing here is actually this top list. There's states from all over the country. We have some western states. Bruce, you got Nebraska's in there. So we have Midwest, we have Southeast, we have Northeast, we have Northern Plains, we have Southwest, a little bit of everything. So I think it just goes to show the diversity of habitats and opportunities that deer hunters have, and the opportunity or diversity of ways that they're taking advantage of it. So I think it's pretty fitting. The final slide here literally has states from every region of the Whitetail's range. Bruce.
Now, the top western states, that's mule deer and whitetail.
That includes. Some of those are just whitetail, some are mule deer and whitetail combined. That's correct. Yeah, that is correct. So, all right, all of that data that I just showed you is in that whitetail report. Here are all the other whitetail reports that we have. As I said, these are all available free downloads at QDMA.com. You can go and grab them. I literally have every one of these printed and on my desk, and I use them on a regular basis. Now, I will say this, if you have gone and you look at these, we are in the process of compiling an index to list the subjects in all of these by group order that will be on our website to then make it very easy to go back and search any topic, whether you're looking for, man, I remember one year Kip did something on deer vehicle accidents. What year was that? Or did they ever do anything on percentages or numbers of food plots? It was that kind of thing. So we're compiling an index to cover all of these that will be online as well. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have something about that what I presented, or if you had a question about something you were hoping I'd present and then did.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.